Do
you see anything, Lorna?
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Okay. 20 seconds. Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
When the days grow longer and the weather gets warmer, there's one word that perfectly encapsulates the sentiment of the beloved season of summer, and it's relaxation. And while there are plenty of summer activities that can help you relax, there is nothing more relaxing than cracking open a book that you can't put down. No matter the genre, a good summer read is an immersive escape, whether you are on vacation or not. Today, I'm talking to two highly acclaimed authors. Their new books will whisk you away and make any day feel like a vacation in the sun. All coming up next.
Live from Los Angeles, this is the Special Report.
My first guest is one of the hottest new authors on the scene today. Her debut book, The Other Black Girl, which hit bookstores just 3 days ago on June 1st, is making a big splash in the book and streaming worlds. In a story that conjures up images of Insecure, The Devil Meets Prada, and Get Out, Zakiya Harris's new book is a page turner that will make you question your relationships with your best friends, your boss, and even your lover. Welcome to the show, Zakiya Harris.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction too.
Wow, well, I am so excited to be sitting down with you 3 days after your book, The Other Black Girl, hit the bookshelves. I was reading, I can tell you the story. So I'm up 5 o'clock in the morning, my normal time that I'm reading through like every newspaper imaginable. And I see this article in the New York Times about your book. And I send it to my producer. I'm like, oh, she's going to be super busy. We probably can't book her, but let's try anyhow. And so my producer comes back. She's like, we got her. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so super excited. And then I'm telling all my friends, and they're like, yeah, this book is so hot. It's all over the internet. People are talking about it. So
thank you.
Just had to get that out. So I'm super excited.
Oh, that means so much to me. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Well, we're going to talk about the book. We talked a lot about the book. I spent the whole day yesterday, stayed up late, getting through page to page. I finished the entire book yesterday, so I'm well-versed on Nella and Hazel and Owen and all the folks in the book. But first, I just want to ask you some questions about what inspired you. You weren't an author. You worked in the publishing business. So tell us what, was the inspiration for you quitting your job and deciding you were going to be a full-time writer.
Yeah. I mean, I had always wanted to be a writer, really ever since I was a kid. But, once I got a little older, that writing can be really, really hard. It's hard to make a living off of it. It's hard to go through all of the circles you need to in order to get a book published. So when I went into editorial, when I worked in publishing, that was also something I really enjoyed too. I loved working with words and structure in that way. But while I also really loved publishing, I was one of very, very, very few Black people working in publishing at the time. So a lot of Nella's experiences of looking around the table, not seeing anyone who looks like her, wondering, is it worth it? Do I stay? To hopefully be able to bring other Black people into this very white space. All of those things were things that I was grappling with as well.
Wow. Let me ask you about this bathroom experience.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened one day on the 13th floor of this Midtown Manhattan publishing firm when you're in the bathroom washing your hands.
Yes. I would be remiss not to bring this up because that was the literal thing that inspired me to start writing this. So washing my hands in the bathroom and minding my own business, another Black woman comes out of the stall. And again, as the only Black woman working in editorial at the time, working on my floor, every time I saw a Black person, I was like, zoing, like, who are you? Where did you come from? And I knew she wasn't an author or an agent because she had I believe, a work badge with her. And so I looked at her, kind of, at least I think, like, looking back on this now, this is 2 years later, but I feel like I was trying to kind of have some kind of moment, a nod. That's how I was raised in a lot of spaces, like being in those white kind of environments, finding that other person, connecting with them, even if you don't say anything, to be like, we're both here. But that did not happen in the bathroom in that moment. And maybe I wasn't communicating enough, wasn't given enough eyes. But
your nonverbal cues, she didn't catch on that you were trying to like that, eye contact thing going.
Yes. And so I went back to my desk, and I wasn't really thinking about her snubbing me. I was really thinking more of like me being so starved for that communication and that conversation, and thinking about my time in publishing and how being in that space, I kind of got used to being the only one. But then there were moments like that where it's like, oh, but wait, like possibilities, And so pulling at that thread, I sat down at my cubicle afterwards and started writing chapter 1 of the book. And the more I pulled at that thread, the more I thought about why the characters in the book, Nella and Hazel, the 2 Black women, why the relationship goes the way that it goes.
Yeah, so let's just jump right into this book, a book about these 2 Black women. Nella, the main character in the book, works at one of the most prestigious publishing houses in New York City. So, did you ever think that your characters would be any other place other than publishing, or was it just clear to you that this story had to take place in publishing?
I love that question. I definitely knew it was going to be a very white workplace. When I started reading, or when I started writing, I knew that, that would be a big part of it. But I kind of also put a pin in it to think, okay, publishing, maybe no one's ready for that yet. Maybe people here aren't ready for that yet. So maybe down the line, I'll change the industry. But the more I wrote, the more kind of ridiculous and fun I found it, the publishing industry, kind of coming at it from this other angle. And I just felt like it was so rich for making fun of it, for commenting on the lack of diversity, the way workplace environments can really get its teeth into you and change the way you think, change the way you act. So pretty quickly, it was clear that that was what I knew. That was where it had to be set.
Okay, so the book is centered in this world that you knew very well because you had been working in the publishing industry. And also, let's talk about some of the characters. So the main character is Nella. She's the only Black woman at this publishing firm initially when the book first starts. And then we start to learn about the other folks in her life. One person we learn about is Owen. It's her boyfriend, her live-in boyfriend. They live together. And Owen is white. And I know that you, at some point, left your job living in a small apartment in Harlem with your boyfriend who happens to be white. So did your boyfriend inspire this Owen character?
He's going to be so happy you asked this question. Definitely. He was such a big part of this book too when I was writing it. He's the reason I could quit, and he moved in with me into my studio apartment. And so I knew that Nella would have this other person in her life, a white man in her life, that would also complicate how she felt about her place in the world, how she felt about her place in Wagner books, in her own race, because she's had a whole years and years of experience trying to grapple with what her Blackness means for her. So Owen is just another example of, how she was raised. Also, she was raised in a lot of mostly white spaces. But yeah, so him as a figure definitely inspired, but there are some differences, some pretty marked differences between the two.
Owen's a pretty good guy in the book. He's very supportive. Yeah. He has his own business, so he's an entrepreneur. So Owen's a pretty cool dude in the book. I like Owen's character.
Yeah.
Now, Miss Hazel. Oh, yeah. My goodness.
Yes.
Hazel, for those of you, we're not going to spill all the tea this morning and give away the entire plot, but Miss Hazel May, is the other Black woman who gets introduced into this story, starts working at Wagner. Wagner is the publishing company. Who was the inspiration for Hazel?
Yeah, that is also a good question. For me, Hazel really represented every time in my life when I've felt like there was another Black person who, for whatever reason, maybe not, out to get me or malicious, but anytime I felt like my own Blackness was challenged, because I like Nella, and spoiler, Nella I really got from me, a lot of parts of me growing up in also white spaces in Connecticut, and having a moment in my life in high school where people said I talked like a white girl. And that for me, as a young Black woman who'd been raised very Black, like knowing my history, knowing my roots, those two things were so crazy to me. And so I wanted to look at how that we can sometimes be our worst enemies. And for Nella, she really thinks like, finally, like I've got someone who gets it. And then to have that taken away by someone who you think would assume, would hope would be your ally is just so devastating. So she's really
we can't tell folks what Hazel does, but Hazel does some scandalous stuff.
Yeah.
I was like ready to jump out of my chair in this one meeting that takes place. So again, I can't tell you what happens in this meeting, but tell us, is this experience, there's this moment when Hazel comes into the workplace where again, Nella is so, I'll use the word even thirsty, companionship, some Black female companionship. Was that based on that experience you had that day in the bathroom when you were hoping to get this contact with that other Black employee?
Definitely spurred, but I don't think so, because I do, maybe this is very idealistic of me, but I do think that she just was in her own world and we're in the bathroom and the moment was all on my side and not hers. But yeah, I mean, I really wanted to take that idea and that tension and really build on it, because I know I've talked to so many Black people after they've read this book who have had their own Hazel in some way or shape or form. So it feels really common, sadly.
Yeah, I'm feeling like, how we use Karen to explain,
yes.
white women.
Yes.
Using Hazel.
Yes.
As
we have to make this catch on.
I feel like we're going to say, that's Hazel.
Yes.
So, other really, I thought, significant female relationships in the book. So Nella has a friend, and then she has this great admiration for some editors and book authors who had come before her. So there's not just the Hazel relationship. Why the other relationships? Why was it important to you to show that Black women could have really positive relationships like the one Nella has with it's Malika, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was so important to me because, first of all, Wagner books can be so oppressive and so heavy, and being in that space can just be a lot. So I really wanted to make sure readers saw that happier side of Nella. They saw what was at stake, like her hanging out with her best friend at the bar, getting a little too drunk on a Tuesday night. Like, we see why Nella matters and why her story is so important. That was really what I hoped to convey. And also, we're not a monolith, right? We are often seen as suffering and, carrying all these burdens, which is true. We have a lot to carry and wade through, but at the same time, we have joys, we have inside jokes, we make references, we have fun. And I think that's so important to show, and we're showing Black characters on the page.
Yeah, speaking of those inside jokes, you use a lot of terms that folks might not be familiar with, and you knew that.
Yes.
And you purposely didn't define them. Again, what said to you, look, you have to go to Google.
Yes.
You have to read this book and get a dictionary, an urban dictionary in some cases.
Yes.
Some of the references.
Yes. First of all, that's what we've been doing. I've been doing for years with other books that are, more mainstream. I use air quotes because what does that even mean? But I think that secondly, though, it's just, that's how I talk with my friends. That's how I talk with my girlfriends. We don't stop to explain. 4C hair, look it up. It's the thing also is, like, we do have Google now. We have so many social media channels, the Black natural hair movement. There's so much beauty that you can find without disturbing anybody by marching up to a Black person, asking them. You can just look for yourself. And I think that's just another way, again, of showing why we matter, in just a more concrete way, seeing that on the page and knowing that, you just have to do the work.
Well, definitely for me, gave the book an authenticity
Mm,
that I think,
thank
you know,
you.
really will resonate with the hundreds of thousands and millions of readers who will be reading this book. So I love
Thank
that you did
you.
that, you know, everything wasn't so literal.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it transported me into the lives of these women and made
Yes.
me feel like I was in the conversations that they were having. And as a Black
Mhm.
woman, I understood that what they were talking about. And you're right, it's the way I would be talking to my friends as well. So no, I thought that was a great element in the book.
Thank
Something
you.
else that I really love was this whole notion of code switching.
Yes. Yes.
You talk about it in a unique way. Tell us again, why was it important to talk about code switching, but then you take it further than the way that it's traditionally written and talked about.
Hmm. Yeah, it's going back to that moment in the bathroom, I think, for me, where I had a moment where I zoomed in on myself and how I've just gotten used to being the only one. And I've also gotten used to being in those spaces and code switching, changing the way I talk, the way I dress, the way all of those things. Because I think it's more than just what you say. I think part of it is changing yourself. And where does that become not a good thing? Because everyone, no matter who you are, has to change themselves a little bit to work in their job usually, like unless you're self-employed. And even in that case, you're changing yourself, right? So what that looks like, where the line between code switching and selling out is, especially for Black people, I think it's really complicated and far more nuanced than I think, frankly, we talk about, especially with white people. I don't think that's something that white people really know about or think about as much as we do. So I really wanted to show that and what that looks like for a young Black person, yet just all young Black women who are trying to work in these very white spaces.
Yeah, and again, you'll have to read the book, but Hazel's code switching and her definition of it and her justification for it, I thought was just really insightful. And I think anyone reading it again is going to have to pause and think about, one, have I done that? I
Yeah.
think that's the question I was sitting there asking myself, like, ooh, have I ever been in that situation? And what did I do more of the Hazel or did I do more of the Nella in that same situation?
Yeah. And also there's no right answer even really, right? Like that's the thing is, and I wanted to get at that through the conversations that are had in the book about there really is no right answer, but it's important to talk about it and just make sure we're communicating with one another.
Yeah, no, it'll make you definitely think about your own interactions. That's supposed to challenge everything you've been thinking about in terms of your relationships with your friends, as well as your
Mhm.
boss and your job. Now, so the book has some really funny parts,
Mhm.
and I don't know if you were planning on, you know, it having, you know, being humorous, but it's also a harsh indictment on the publishing industry. And again, you have these examples and this storyline about Wagner, this very prestigious publishing agency, going through what so many companies probably went through over the last 14 months after
Yes.
the mass protest, after the press releases about diversity and inclusion, after they've hired all of these diversity and inclusion officers. You gave us a glimpse into what it might look like inside one of these big, predominantly white institutions as they were grappling with this whole concept of diversity and inclusion. Any fear there on your part that, oh, I'm selling this book to the publishing industry, exciting them at the same time?
It's so weird, honestly. It's very meta. It's very meta because when I started writing this in 2019, the people on my mind were Eric Garner, Philando Castile, that time period. And so to be then editing it during last year, where it felt like, again, we're having the same thing happen. And like, how many times is this going to happen? And seeing, the wave of tweets, the wave of, corporate America trying, expressing that they're allies and all of that stuff, but also feeling like, are you really, like, we have done this, you have done this. How many more times is this going to keep happening? And we're going to then forget about it. And so I'm hoping, there was a wave in publishing specifically last summer when everything was going on, but I'm really, depends on what day you ask me, but I feel like the reckoning is really going to happen after everyone's back in the office and talking face to face, taking away the performative aspect of it, frankly.
Yeah, this company, and as I'm reading this, I'm thinking that this is probably so the way that these conversations took place. And
Yes.
again, I'm not gonna tell them,
Yeah.
all of the conversations, but I was like, she hit
Yeah.
this. She hit
Yes.
this. Hit this out the park because I've been in some of those
Thank you.
conversations. Yeah, you got that right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now you hit us with the most serious plot twist ever. This book, okay, you went straight out Jordan Peele, Get Out, and you saw that 2017 blockbuster movie, and you remember the big plot twist in that movie. There's a similar plot twist in this book. I had to go back because I was like, did I miss something? And I had to go back and reread as you started to introduce this plot twist. So tell us, were you inspired as you were writing in 2018? Because the movie had come out in 2017. It was the everything. The Jordan Peele movie was just the biggest thing ever.
Yeah.
So how did that inspire your plot twist?
For sure, for sure. I mean, I remember seeing a matinee of Get Out by myself because everyone was talking about it. And I was like, I'm just going to see it for myself, pay a cheap price for it. I called my dad. I talked to him for an hour about the movie afterwards. Like the way that it took genre, the way that it blended comedy and social commentary and just talking about white liberals in that way was so new to me and fascinating. And I've always personally loved horror. I've loved sci-fi, old school movies, The Blob, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and then Octavia Butler's Kindred also, which I read for the first time in high school, really blew up my world. And so Black people in horror, Black people in sci-fi, it just makes so much sense. Like our lives, our experiences in this country and throughout the world, I mean, it's horrific. A lot of it has been horrific and traumatizing. And so I really wanted to get at that through something unexpected. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's unexpected, but it ties in, again, that authenticity piece. How you, the plot, the horror part of the book is tied so perfectly to what it means to be a Black woman. So again, you got to leave it there.
Thank you.
Y'all got to buy the book and get to that plot twist, but it is a serious plot twist going on in the book. Okay, now I got to ask you about the blow up because you have had the most amazing blow up. Every adjective I can think of. 14 publishers bidding on this book. Ultimately, like a 7-figure deal on your first book. And 7 figures, y'all, is like over $1 million. Let's just be real clear about it.
Yeah.
Any idea when you sat down and wrote that first paragraph at that cubicle that you would be here 2 years later?
No, not at all. Because you know what? I knew again how hard it was to publish a book. I knew how many books came across our desks and editorial and how many were very well written, great premise, but there's so many other factors besides those two things that go into a book getting bought. There's the audience factor. Everything is there's so much that goes into it. So when I was writing it, I would talk to people about it. And, I told my coworkers I was quitting to write a book and people would give me good reception. Like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. But like, I had no idea.
I'm sure you were getting a lot of the,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Writing the book. Okay, good luck with
that. Yeah, like everybody else has tried that. And really, I mean, when I was writing, my biggest thing was like, okay, all I want is just to get one publisher. If I just get one person who likes this book enough and will publish it, and I'll have completed my dream. Because it was my dream for a very long time. So to have one publisher and then some, be like, I love this book, with the fact that it was publishing, critiquing publishing, the fact that it was making fun of, but also just commenting on the way white liberals can sometimes be performative with their allyship. All of those kind of things It's wild. I can't believe I'm talking to you right now about this.
Yeah, I guess, Zakia, you're being very modest. It wasn't one publisher and then some. It was 14 publishers bidding at an auction. And as a 3-time published author myself, I know, as you just said, publishing a book is incredibly difficult.
Yes.
Getting an advance, let's start there. Getting any money in advance for a book is like incredibly difficult.
I know.
And then having 14 of the top publishers in this country, in the world, international included, bidding on your book, and then to be able to sell it to imprint of Simon & Schuster, one of the biggest imprints in the country in the publishing business, is just nothing short of miraculous, and speaks to your talent and speaks to the just
Thank you.
the incredible story that you tell in this book. But there's more. So y'all, it wasn't just $1 million. That was just the start. The $1 million start. 100,000 plus copies. Again,
Yes.
effective world. Most books don't even sell 15,000 copies. 10 to 15,000 copies printed on the first run, again, is considered success.
Yes.
Out the gate, they're printing 100,000 plus copies of this book. That is incredible.
I know. Well, also, again, like it's hard for me to take my publishing glasses off all the time. And so I remember print runs and how those worked. And so to be like, hearing that and be like, you sure? Like, okay. Thank you.
You know, because you sat on the other side.
Yeah.
You know what publishers, how conservative they are.
Yes.
And on that first print run, they don't want to have books sitting in a warehouse that can't sell. Stores don't want to ship books, but all of that's money, time, and expenses. So they're very conservative on that first print run. But they were so confident in this book. They're like, hey, just print hundreds of thousands.
I mean, they've also, my team at Atria I have to give them credit too, because from the beginning, they saw this project. I never had to compromise on we talked about the references. I never had to explain any of that. I knew I wanted a Black artist for the cover. So had a list of potential artists. They took that, they ran with it and got us this gorgeous cover by Temi Coker. I mean, yes, My Black is beautiful. I highly recommend looking him up. Amazing artist. And I mean, my marketer, my publicist, we're just trying to get this book into diverse hands, Black hands too, which is another thing I'd seen, on the other side of publishing, the mainstream audience, going back to that group, is a specific kind of person. It's usually a white person. And I really wanted this book to reach as many people and diverse people as possible. And they've just really seen that through. So I'm really lucky. This is not everyone's story. So
yeah. Okay. Got some more news here, y'all. We just spilling the tea this morning with Zakia. Hulu deal.
Yes.
Again, not just any Hulu deal. So the book's already been optioned for a series on the popular streaming site Hulu, but a deal in 6 weeks. Again, these kinds of option, again, close to impossible. And when it does happen, it takes months, if not years.
Mm-hmm.
I've had New York Times bestselling authors that I've sat down and interviewed who are still trying to get books. They got the option. I love the book. I'll give you the option. So I tie you up in a contract.
Yeah.
But then getting that to, an actual, finished
Mm-hmm.
product, it's just amazing. So I'm running out of time, but quickly, how did the Hulu deal come about so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it all was happening at once when we were meeting with publishers. While the book was in auction, I was also meeting with producers, with teams, and talking about the book, adapting the book. And that was something I never thought about before. But the more we talked, I was like, okay, I could see this. Like, I could see this working out. And they wanted me to be a part of it. I ended up going with Temple Hill Production and Tara Duncan, a lovely Black woman who was at Netflix and now she's at Disney. And I met with her. I had the chance to meet with her because she happened to be in the city. This was weeks before the pandemic hit, by the way, like 2 weeks, I think. And just had such a good vibe. And I know that I got the feeling in the sense, and this has been the case, that they wanted me to be a part of it. They wanted me to co-write it. They wanted my experience because they liked my voice. And to hear that from people who have been in this business, which is entirely new to me, and to have their faith in me and put their faith in me, that was just remarkable. And so it's been fun. I'm really enjoying co-writing the series with Rashida Jones. And I'm just excited to be learning something new.
Okay, who's playing Nella? And who are like the perfect characters?
Yeah.
Who will embody this Nella, this not so confident but talented Black woman, and then Hazel with all of her largeness, all of her personality?
Yeah, I mean, I am so bad with actresses and names, but the person who often comes to mind for me is Kiki Lane, who I just started. I've noticed her in I can't remember what it's called. There's a Netflix movie that came out with Charlize Theron, but she's so the Old Guard, and I think she's in Coming to America too. She just has this. I don't know, she has the vibe. There's an earnestness to her. I could see her working really well for Nella. For Hazel, I mean, that's tricky because there's a lot going on there, but I could see maybe Keke Palmer, another Kiki. So, I mean, but I don't know. I love the idea of having kind of undiscovered Black talent play these roles so that viewers can bring their own kind of, a fresh slate, I guess, if you will, a clean slate, so that the characters will be fresh. And so I don't know, it's still pretty early, but it's fun to think about it, and fun to think about the soundtrack too.
Yeah, as I was reading the book and I knew about the Hulu deal, I was trying to, in my mind, envision like who would be the perfect actresses to play these characters. I was thinking about Owen, some like, I don't know if Owen is super handsome, if he's more the studious book type. I couldn't really tell. So I was like, who would be? And then there's Vera.
Vera, yes. Yeah.
And Richard, I'm thinking like, who's going to be Richard?
Yes. There's so much. Kendra Ray and Diana too. I mean, I think of like Angela Bassett. I just wish could play both of them. Just think she's so great.
Yeah, you have some great references to Angela in the book. Well, yes. Zakiya, I can't thank you enough. 3 days, from it must be one of the happiest days of your life when the book, The Other Black Girl, dropped with so much praise and acclaim from, writers from Terry McMillan to Walter Mosley have weighed in with just incredible praise for this book. Congratulations. Keep representing, keep making the ancestors proud, and just standing in your truth and just being the bright light that you are. So happy for you. And I'm going to be sending this book to like a bunch of my girlfriends for their summer reads when they're laying on the beach, tropical vacation now that we can travel.
Yes.
Summer read.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was such a pleasure.
Okay, take care. Again, that is Zakiya Harris. She has written an amazing book, so make sure you check it out. Again, it's The Other Black Girl. You can find it in any bookstore because it's all over the place. I'm super excited about this morning because now I get to talk to a lawyer who has turned her Stanford law degree into this amazing publishing career that she now has. Her name is Jasmine Guillory. She is a New York Times bestselling author of 6 contemporary romance novels, including The Proposal and The Wedding Date, and her latest book, While We Were Dating, hits bookshelves on July 13th. Good morning and welcome, Jasmine.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
So we are going from horror to romance, contemporary romance. I'm super excited to sit down with you. In the opening, I said you're a Stanford lawyer. So here you are with this, super prestigious law degree from this big time law school. And you said, I think I better, follow my passion and start writing contemporary romance. How did the transition happen?
Well, I mean, there was a while when I was doing both, so that there was a lot of juggling there. I started writing while I was still working as a lawyer. So there were a few years, even before I got a publishing deal, where I was sort of writing at night and on the weekends. And then I got a publishing deal and was still doing a little bit of both for a while, and now finally I'm writing full time. So that there was a sort of a lot of transitions, because in the like starting to write and then doing both at the same time, and then being able to no longer be active with the bar and now be a full-time writer.
Well, I have I have several good friends who are lawyers, went to Harvard with me, who have become writers, full-time writers. One, Ginger McKnight, she's in New York. She writes adult fiction. And my lawyer, who's a children's writer, Bonnie Barry Lamont, two brilliant lawyers like yourself who have become authors. So kudos to all of you. I want to ask you though, contemporary romance. So I've had Beverly Jenkins on my show. I've talked to her about historical romance. How did you decide on contemporary romance?
I was reading a lot of romance and just finding it so perfect for the moment that I was in. I was struggling with a lot of stuff. And I think romance is so great when you're going through hard times, because it's an uplifting story. You know that something good is going to happen at the end. And that's just what I needed. And so I had been writing for a few years then, but I hadn't really thought about writing romance. And then when I first started reading contemporary romance, I thought like, oh, this would be fun. And then I had the idea for The Wedding Date, which was my first book. And then I just started writing it. And I just had so much fun with it. Like, it was all I could think about, for the months that I was writing it. I just kept wanting to go home and work on it. And so it really, like, the amount of joy I took out of writing that book, I really hope people take out of reading it.
So 2018, The Wedding Date, a book that I ran out and bought myself from the bookshelves. You can find it in any bookstores. This book hit the New York Times best-selling list. Did you have any thought when you were running home from that law firm, writing this book, that your debut book would, be so successful?
The Wedding Date did not hit the bestseller list, but other books have. That one certainly was much more successful than I ever thought in my wildest dreams that it would have been. I mean, I really was at the point when I just started writing it, like, I wanted to write a story that I wanted to read. At that point, I just like wanted to write something to cheer me up, to make me happy, and that I thought other people would enjoy. And so my hope was that, like, maybe I would get a publishing deal out of this, but that didn't really come for a few months. Like, at first I was just sort of enjoying writing, and then I was thinking, like, maybe this could be something. I don't know. We'll see. And so it really has, like, I did not think that that now I would be, on the cusp of my 6th book coming out. It really has been amazing.
So you're right. I got that confused. Your book, The Proposal,
Indeed.
actually hit the New York Times bestsellers list. Okay. But The Wedding Date was the beginning of that series. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was the beginning of everything.
Okay. And in 3 years, you write 6 books. I mean, that's a whole lot of writing. Really prolific author. Again, what's the inspiration for you? I know you write a lot about food. A lot of your books are about fitness. I mean, contemporary things, things that people care about. But is there any one thing that, really inspires a particular story for you?
I mean, in general, I love writing about, like, people and their relationships, right? Whether it's like, so many of my books have, like, the women in my books have really tight female friendships, because that's what I have, and that's, what I can relate to. I mean, there's relationships with family, with friends, and then romantic relationships. And I think all of those play a part in who makes us who we are. And so at the core of what I do and what I'm writing, it's really all of those relationships.
Yeah. So your latest book, While We Were Dating, available for pre-sales now. You can go online, you go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, you can go to Jasmine's website, and you can pre-order While We Were Dating. It hits the bookshelves on July 21st. The book has already gotten rave reviews. It's on a bunch of must-read summer books, top books for the summer. The reviews, I've been reading them, have just been incredible. So this book follows Ben. So Ben, he's the brother to a character that you introduced in The Wedding Party, which is one of your other books before that came out before this one did. Why Ben? Why is Ben the central figure in While We Were Dating?
Yes, he was the brother character in The Wedding Party. And as soon as I wrote him, I just had so much fun with him. He was just sort of like the younger kind of funny, hot brother of this like much more serious, glasses wearing, nerdy character in that book. And it was just like a joy to write him. And I thought like, I need to write his book someday. And then the someday was last summer when I started working on it.
So Ben ends up in this romantic relationship with a movie star, Anna. So you actually, this story, the new book story is kind of a Hollywood. I mean, it's a story about all the vagrancies, and the things that happen in Hollywood. Why Hollywood? I know you live in Northern California, but what inspired this Hollywood romance?
I mean, I think I'm really fascinated by kind of the subject of celebrity and the way in which we both glorify and try to tear down celebrities. And so there's a lot of that in Anna's story. She has been famous for a while, but had a kind of slow climb to the top, and has now been dealing with like how she manages her life as a public figure, but stays as a person too. Like she's very close to her family. She's dealt with some mental health issues, and she's really trying to like keep her life all together. And so I wanted to kind of think about how it really affects people at the core of that when, there's all these articles written about them and pictures of them and, stories of them that may or may not have any grain of truth. And so how that affects both them and their relationships with people and the rest of the world.
Yeah, and you mentioned Anna's mental health issues. So I know in the book she suffers from anxiety, and a lot of the praise that I read about the book is people feeling, so good, so happy about the fact that you are highlighting mental health issues again in Hollywood. Someone who, people think people who are celebrities, they have it all. Like, oh my God, their life is perfect. And you show, contrary to that, they grapple and deal with the same issues everyday people deal with. But Ben in this book is so incredibly loving and nurturing and understanding of what Anna is going through. Were you hoping that, that this would shine a light, I should say, on mental health issues? Was that a part of your goal?
Yes and no. I mean, that came sort of naturally for the book and the characters. So I do hope, just this week, there's been so much conversation about mental health, with like everything going on in the tennis world and the terrible way that people have been treating her because of talking about mental health issues, right? And so but things like that happen kind of all the time. And so I was thinking a lot about that as I wrote the book, especially writing it in the midst of the pandemic, where everyone I know was dealing with mental health issues, right? And so I think I do hope that the book shines light on that and people talk about it. But my goal was really to make it feel real, to make it feel like this was a real person going through these issues, and how was she dealing with it, and how was she, making her life around that.
You mentioned, Jasmine, that you wrote this book during the pandemic. What was that experience like? I mean, here we are, all locked down in our homes. Some people were incredibly productive like you. Others, said that they couldn't get off the couch. They couldn't stop, watching, Netflix series after Netflix series. But what gave you that motivation to say, hey, I'm going to crank out book number 6?
Well, I mean, I had the motivation of a contract and a deadline, but also I really didn't think that I could write this book. I mean, I had planned on starting it. My goal actually was to start it in March of last year. I was at a writing retreat, and then while we were at the retreat, like it was kind of that day that the world all fell apart, right? And I was frozen. I mean, it didn't feel like I didn't know how to write anything, and I especially didn't know how to write a love story in the midst of such uncertainty and fear and anxiety. And so I really felt frozen for like a month and a half. I didn't start anything. And then finally, I just sort of very slowly started writing. I think I told my agent and editor many times that I was going to be late on my deadline. I didn't know I was going to turn this book, and they were very understanding. And then it just sort of, as I started writing it, it really became my salvation during parts of last summer, which were so hard, I think, for so many of us. And it was really the thing that I woke up in the morning to do. Like it really brought me a lot of joy and a lot of comfort to kind of dive right into Ben and Anna's story. And I hope that this book can bring that kind of joy to other people.
Wow, no, that's incredible, and just glad to hear that you found purpose, in a way to keep yourself going during the pandemic, because it was so tough for all of us.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Anna. So Anna is not your necessarily stereotypical, movie star in Hollywood. She's a Black woman. She's a plus size woman, and she's had to deal with people's judgment and negative perception of her. What inspired that character, Anna, and her physical attributes?
There's so much, right? I mean, I think some of my experiences, absolutely, but then so much of like what I have seen just by watching, looking in magazines, watching other Black women and what they've gone through, looking on Instagram and seeing like, when Black women post pictures of themselves, the comments that they get from so many people about their bodies or what they're wearing or what they look like. And it's just like, it really has made me think about, and that happens, I think, for so many Black women, and then for celebrities, it's just heightened. And right. So that really made me think of how that can affect them. And sometimes, it's easy for people to kind of draw boundaries and not even think about that. But I think sometimes it can really get to you no matter what. And so I really thought about the ways in which we treat women in general in our society, but especially Black women who tend to get it the worst.
Yeah. So much when I think about contemporary romance, again, we don't typically think about African-American female writers. For Beverly educated me on how the field of romance was dominated. White authors dominated the field. So who inspired you? Like, what authors have been inspirational for you?
Of course, absolutely Beverly Jenkins, who is kind of one of the women that we all look up to, right? She is amazing and has crafted this incredible career for herself in romance, and is really one of the people that made me think like, okay, this could be possible for me. But then there are so many wonderful Black writers who have really both been inspirational, but also just really encouraging of other writers. Tayari Jones, who wrote An American Marriage, and so many other books, has just been wonderful to so many Black writers coming up after her. Roxane Gay, who has been so kind and generous with her time and advice, and attention to like other Black female writers especially, are really two of the people who I think about all the time and I'm so grateful for.
Wow. So Jasmine, you hear people so often who are in careers, whether it's a legal career, medical profession, accounting, insurance, whatever, who say they have a book in them and they want to write a book, but they're so afraid, to take that leap, to go from that 9-to-5 job that they have, or that career that they've spent, so much time investing in, to follow their passion, if their passion is writing. What advice do you have for someone that, says they have a book in them, but they don't have the courage right now to step out on faith and, take that plunge?
I totally understand that fear, because I was afraid too. I think the most important thing is just to start. And whether you tell people, tell friends, talk to other writers and get advice from them, or if you just like write secretly in your bedroom for 30 minutes every night, like that's enough to get you started. And I think whatever starts you off and makes you decide, yes, I keep wanting to do this. Like when I first started writing, I was really nervous about it. I didn't know if, I felt like I had built, I wanted to be a lawyer my whole life. Why are you even thinking you can do this? I didn't know if I could do it. And so just like when I started, I was sort of fumbling my way through. I didn't know if I was doing it right, but I also knew that I really enjoyed it. And I looked forward to that moment every night where I could go home, and sit down and open my laptop and keep going with the story I was telling. And so I think that's the most important thing is like, are you finding joy in this? Do you see ways in which you like want to get better and can try to keep going? Then keep going. You don't have to be perfect right away. Like nobody is a great lawyer, as soon as they decide they want to do it. I think it is a learning process. There is a lot you have to learn, but that's okay. I mean, I think I still learn constantly every single day from every bit of work I do, every other writer I talk to. And, but the most important thing is like, I love it. I'm excited every time.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. You wrote your first book, 2018. So much has changed in this country in the last, 14 months or so. And I was talking earlier in the show with Zakiya about the publishing industry, which she knows, firsthand, having worked in it, and her book, The Other Black Girl, being about the publishing industry. What changes, if any, have you seen in the publishing industry as it relates to, particularly to Black authors like yourself, who are telling stories that have Black characters and Black themes?
I really have seen a lot of changes. I think people have been more willing to not only grant those publishing deals to Black people telling their stories, but to keep doing it, to elevate them, to give them, I think, the thing that I think people don't talk about enough with publishing is it's not just getting the deal, it's getting the support from your publishing house. It's getting those people on your side to, talk to the bookstores and make sure bookstores want to stock your book, and talk to, Barnes & Noble and Amazon and all of those things to like get the buzz behind your book. And I think I have seen a lot more of that in the past, especially the past year, but the past 3 years, really, I have seen, I walk into bookstores now, I see a lot more books by Black women on the front tables. I see a lot more of that in like all of the articles about upcoming books. I see books by people who look like me, and it brings me so much joy. And so my goal is to keep pushing the publishing world to keep doing this, because that's really all I want. Like I'm rooting for everybody Black.
No, that's fantastic. And definitely, you're right. Every time I pick up a review and a list of like must read books, and your book is on, like I said, every summer read list, you see so many more African-American authors. So that's really a positive thing. While We Were Dating is the last book in this series. So the series is ending. So the two questions: why is it ending? And obviously, what's next?
I think this is I actually didn't intend on writing 6 books about sort of a related group of people when I first started. And so I feel like it is time to start with something new. I loved writing While We Were Dating, and I feel like it's a perfect kind of end to this group of people, but I love them all so much. So I don't know, maybe someday I'll feel regret on that. We'll see. you never say never in this world. But I also think, it's exciting for me to kind of start fresh and think about a new world and a new universe that I want to create. And so I'm excited to dive into something new.
So, the big thing now with books, particularly successful books and successful authors like yourself, is that the books are, turned into blockbuster movies or TV series. I'm sure that there are some projects or deals that are happening with you. Anything you want to share about, what we may be seeing in the future as it relates to movies or series with any of the 6 books that you've written?
Well, the first 4 books have been optioned by Hello Sunshine, which is Reese Witherspoon's production company. So fingers crossed for something exciting to happen with any of those. I would be thrilled for that.
Wow, fantastic. That's good news to hear. So got to ask you, if one of the books involves Ben, or one of the things that she does from a movie or series standpoint involves Ben or Anna, who in your mind, who's the perfect Ben? Who's the perfect Anna?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I am like Zakiya said, I am also terrible at actors and actresses and their names. I think that, an incredible Ben would be the Duke from Bridgerton. He's free now. So
Age.
he would be great, Ben. As for Anna, I think that there are so many great people who could play Anna. I am really excited to see like what Hollywood could come up with for her.
Wow. Well, yeah, Reggae can definitely take a steamy book and make it steamier.
Yeah.
So, well, he has demonstrated that in more ways than one. Wow. Well, Jasmine, congratulations on all of your success. Good luck with the new book again. While We Were Dating hits bookshelves this July. You can go online, Jasmine's website, JasmineGuillory.com. You can go to Barnes & Noble. You can go to Amazon. You can find this book by this New York Times bestselling author everywhere. It will be on bookshelves, but you can pre-order it now. Continued success, my friend. We hope that Reese Witherspoon turns, some of these books, all of these books, into some great, either TV series or movies, because you are clearly the rom-com queen, and we need to see more of these stories told by African American. I mean, I think of all the rom-coms that I've watched, and there've been some that, involve Black, stories and Black themes, but I don't know if we've had one.
We don't have enough. We need more of those.
I can't think. I'm thinking of some.
The like sassy best friend. I want us to be in the main character.
Yeah. I'm thinking of the 90s. There was a period in the 90s where we had more of those kind of Black rom-com, love romance, romantic comedies, I guess they call them too. So we definitely, the world can use more of them, more Black, voices like yours, more Black characters, more Black authentic stories. So I'm sure we have not seen the last of this 6-book series. Can't wait to see what new, slate of characters you come up with and where you're going to place them and what storylines you're going to attach to them. But I'm sure everything you touch is going to turn to gold. Because
thank you so much.
And again, just so happy to have a chance to sit down and talk with you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful.
Okay, take care. Wow, I want to thank both of my guests this morning, Zakiya Harris, the other Black girl, and Jasmine Guillory, her new book coming out, While We Were Dating. These are amazing African-American female authors, and I'm so honored to have an opportunity to speak with them about their blockbuster projects. Getting a book deal, as you've heard both of these authors say, is not easy, but they've been successful, and the more people that are successful in getting these book deals, that means the more people that will be successful. So as they break down these glass ceilings and as they walk through these publishing houses demanding and getting 7-figure book deals, that means that more people of color will be able to do the same. So make sure you support these two authors. Pick up their books for your summer vacation, your staycation. Their stories will blow you away. And not only will you be supporting them and their success, but you will be opening the door and the doors of these traditionally all-white publishing houses to more people of color, so that more people of color can tell the stories that matter. And we can have more, not just books, but TV shows and movies with Black characters. So there is some method to your buying. So your buying purchase will have, far-reaching consequences beyond just a great summer read book. Just some words to live by before I get out. Knowledge is power. And if you watched our show on Blacks in the Military on Wednesday, June 2nd, you heard the 2 female retired Army officers talk so proudly about the 6888. Now, some of you are probably saying, 6888, what are they talking about? A relatively unknown story about Black women in the military. And you heard one of the officers say, we've all heard about the Tuskegee Airmen, but so few of us have heard about the 6888. Well, I was one of those people, but I told you also on that show that I'm a lifelong learner and I am a student forever. So I went and did some homework. I want to share with you what I learned. Well, what I learned is that the 6888 was an all-Black female Army battalion that served our country during World War II. They helped to boost the morale of U.S. soldiers in combat by making sure that these soldiers got their mail. Now, you may think that's a small thing, but imagine being in Europe, away from your family, and there's no internet, there's no FaceTime, there's no Instagram, there's no Twitter, there's nothing but what we call now snail mail. And getting a letter from your loved one, you being able to communicate with your loved one, it was everything, as it still is today. But back then, being in the service, not being able to get mail was a huge, downer for these soldiers. And the mission of these women was to sort and to clear a 2-year backlog of mail for over 7 million Americans who were stationed in Europe. This Herculean task fell on the shoulders of 855 Black women. And the motto of these women was no mail, low morale. And this was the largest contingency of Black women to ever serve overseas. And these women, they dispelled stereotypes and they represented a change in racial and gender roles in the military. And they knew, these women, these 855 Black women knew that what they did would reflect on all Black people. And they did not disappoint. They served this country with honor, with dignity and excellence until their mission was over in March of 1946. These women, the 6888, they were Black girl magic way before it was a trending hashtag. And like my authors today, they cracked and shattered and broke glass ceilings so that other Black women could serve in the military, write books, and do whatever they set their minds to do. I'm out. Y'all be safe out there. And remember, we are all in this together.